Thank you so much for being here, and welcome to Walking the Tightrope, People and Profits. Before we get started today, I do just want to let everyone know that we are recording this session today. So if that helps you determine if you want to keep your camera on or off, or what you say, we just thought we would give you that bit of information. I'm Adrienne Jones, and I'm the founder and head learning architect at Adrienne E. Jones, LLC. It's a Portland-based learning experience design firm, and I've been a part of the conference committee to help put this conference together today as well. I'm excited today for this session because we have several members of the Kinesis team here with us today, including Sean Bessie, CEO and founder of Kinesis, Allison Tierney, Anya Taylor, and Lauren Prost. Kinesis is a Portland-based company helping small businesses achieve their potential through human-centered strategies, and they're also a B Corp. And like many B Corps this year, Kinesis has had to walk the tightrope between people and profits. Today, they're going to share some of their journey with you, and then we'll invite everyone here today to discuss some of the challenges that you've encountered as well in small breakout room sessions. So we'll start here together, and then we're going to push everyone into the breakout rooms, small group discussion. So if you can, one last time, please go ahead and update your name to include your organization as well as your title there. That would help us make sure you're in the right group. So from here, I am going to go ahead and let the Kinesis team take it. Welcome, Kinesis team. Thank you for being here today.
Well, thanks, Adrienne. It's nice to see so many people, many of whom I recognize. It's a weird world doing this whole virtual presentation thing. I keep thinking I'll get used to it, but it's still weird. And I'm really looking forward to seeing people at events someday soon. Yeah, so I've been thinking about, how I could frame up this conversation to bring the most value in the shortest period of time, because it's a pretty quick session. And we also wanted to allocate a fair bit of time for folks to go into breakout rooms and to learn from each other. So what I thought I'd do is put together just a very, very brief slide deck and share some of the experiences and insights that we've gained over the last, I don't know what period of time you want to pick. We've been around for 20 years. So, but especially in the last 2 or 3 years, which have been, really tumultuous and challenging for most owners. So why don't I start by pivoting over here to the screen, and unlike kind of most presentations, I'm going to start not with our story. I'll get to that in just a second. I wanted to start with Dan Price, and I'm guessing some of you in the room know who Dan is. He's sort of made a name for himself a number of years ago by switching all of his employees to have a minimum wage of $70,000 at his firm, Gravity Payments, up in Seattle. Got a lot of press for that, got a lot of negative press for that, saying that the company would certainly fail as the result of his generosity. He cut his salary pretty dramatically in order to make this happen. But as it turns out, that generosity paid in kind of unforeseen ways. The company size tripled since doing that. Turnover was cut in half. The loyalty and the goodwill and the press that was received from that gesture really catapulted the organization into the limelight. And I share that experience because in many ways that was setting the foundation for Price's next dramatic moment in the limelight, which happened in the early stages of the pandemic in 2020. Gravity Payments does credit card processing. So you can imagine that their line of business would be small retail stores, restaurants, bars, pretty much all the businesses that were shut down in the beginning of the pandemic. And pretty much overnight, their revenues evaporated by 55%. So this company, which was on a rocket of growth with a tremendously, kind of powerful people story, and one in which, you were starting to see employees buy houses at a rate that had never been seen before. They were actually starting families. They were really becoming advocates for the brand. This organization was under, incredible threat to sort of ending. And I remember talking to Dan in those early days over LinkedIn he reached out to me. We had been connected, and he was basically doing business development. He was like, hey, if you have any clients who might need credit card processing, I would love to help them. And, it says a lot when an owner, in a time of struggle is just in the trenches with their employees. And I was really struck by that. And then the next thing that was really struck me was that his answer to this revenue shortfall, I mean, imagine overnight half of your business goes away. It was to ask his people what they should do. It wasn't to prescribe what should be done, but to actually engage the team. And rather than, the traditional model of cutting and slashing, he asked the team what they wanted to do. And I know many of you probably know this story as well. What they decided was a lot of voluntary furloughs, a lot of voluntary salary reductions, and they worked together to find a way to fill that salary void, that payroll void. And I really believe that the reason he was able to make that ask was that his generosity in 2015 had really built an organization that put people at the center of the business. And it really was shifting from a top-down hierarchical organization into one that was what I would call a human-centered business strategy. And I want to introduce this idea today because I think it's a powerful tool that we all have. And I've sort of mislabeled the title of this talk of People and Profits as if these are two tension points that, you either have to choose one or the other, because I think that is the dichotomy that's often presented to us. So I'm going to ask the question, what is a human-centered strategy? And to answer that question, I want to start with a traditional idea of strategy, which is from Michael Porter, if you study strategy at all. And, his idea is that essentially strategy is the idea of achieving a goal, right? So in Price's case, he wanted to achieve the goal of keeping the company alive. It's doing it with limited resources. So it wasn't like he had infinite money that he could pull from some venture fund. He's an entirely bootstrapped company like most of us here are. And then the third piece is that it's in the face of uncertainty. So really great strategy, a people-centric strategy. One of the hallmarks of it is like, you don't know if it's going to work. And, he didn't know if his $70,000 minimum wage would work. He was told by all the business minds that it would fail. He didn't know if going to his employees would work as a strategy for filling the revenue gap. So fundamentally, great strategy has an element of uncertainty. It has an element of risk. And, let's hope, right? And at the center of this idea is people. And so I think a traditional idea of strategy is that it's something that the brains in the C-suite come up with, and they impose that on the business. And I would say that the idea behind a people-centered strategy is one that's both top-down and bottom-up, and it's a collaboration between the two. So just a little bit about our crazy company and what we do and what we have done in our journey of a people-centric strategy. And I'm going to go pretty quick on this one. We've been really working with this idea for the last 10 or so years of how to make small businesses remarkable, because they actually are, I think, the most important force in our culture. And they are also the ones that are most risky and most hard to be run successfully. So we've been studying this idea, and we've been figuring out ways to help businesses to thrive and grow. And so we've been using ourselves as our own incubator lab. So we found out a few things, like you write marketing plans, that helps you succeed over those that don't have plans. You have a written vision, those will help you succeed over those that don't have a vision. Track your metrics. These are all kind of like the basics that we used, in order to start our people-centric strategy. But I'd say that the main piece of it was what if you built a company where the bedrock of it was that everybody loved to come to work? And everybody cared about each other. And I think B Corps do this really well, right? So engaged employees tend to be more profitable. They have greater productivity. There's fewer accidents. There's fewer defects. There's lower absenteeism. And we lived this strategy really for the last 10 years. And it was amazing. So when you talk about people versus profits, it really helped us to be a profitable, growth-oriented company. I dug into the archives. My colleague Allison and I are way younger there. We won lots of fast growth awards for the Portland Business Journal, 5 years in a row, winning the Lighthouse Award. We became a B Corp in that same year. really kind of propelling the company forward. I think in a lot of ways, like Dan Price is saying, what if we invested in people? What if we created a culture of engagement and we worked towards a shared vision? Like Price, we had to face this thing, which we're probably all sick of seeing this graphic at this point. In early 2020, we really weren't sure where things were going to go. We modeled out, wow, what would it look like if we cut our wages? What would it look like if we reduced our salary? What? And I think fundamentally what we settled back on is like, let's go back to people and let's find a way to celebrate people and to support people, and we will find a way together forward. So one of the ways we did that, we were told that we couldn't use our office for a period of time. It wasn't safe, it wasn't legal. Then we had all these employees who are under stress, having to teach their kids at home, be daycare providers and teachers. So we took our office and we converted it into a school. So this is a great example of a human-centric strategy, right? Limited resources. We didn't know if it would work. We wanted to achieve a goal of making our employees' lives better so that they could focus on their work and be happy doing it, or at least not awful. I mean, that was kind of success in that period of time, right? Like, make it not awful. We converted this into a school. It cost us a little bit of money, but I would say it was more creativity than money. And the funny thing about this is we didn't really, throw the news out there. This is this thing we're doing. We just did it because it was a people-centered approach. Dylan got to play some basketball for PE, which was awesome. Families kind of brought their kids together, and, good things came out of it. And, it's funny because I think if you were to look at the P&L and say, we really can't afford to do this extra thing, but the hidden benefits of it were pretty incredible in terms of employees' well-being and happiness. And then, the New York Times decided to do an article about it, which then translates into awareness and marketing and people wanting to work for companies that live those kind of values. And so another good example of like living that idea of putting people at the center and what's possible with that. So with that said, I'm going to stop slides here, and I think we'll pivot over here into the breakout rooms for a minute. And what I thought we would do is, some of us have probably built our own sort of version of a human-led strategy. Maybe we've experienced something like, I didn't know if Kinesis School would work out or be a total failure, right? Dan Price didn't know if paying his employees a minimum wage would work out the way it has. So I'd love to learn from this group and have us all learn from each other ways in which we've led with humanity and that it's worked for us in terms of the business. Because I think oftentimes it's put up as a false dichotomy. You either have to do what's right for the business or you have to do what's right for the people. And I think B Corps do a really good job of saying that that both of those things are important. I think we can learn from each other. So sort of the two questions that we can work in when we go into our breakout rooms are, what have you done? What have you implemented that's a people-led strategy that's worked for you? Or what are you thinking about? What's a people-led strategy that you've contemplated and that might be something that you could do in your business, and we could work with each other and learn and grow. So I think Team Adrian, Lauren are going to send us in our respective groups. So yes. I'll see you on the other side. All right.
I'll let y'all know when we're wrapping up. You got about 20 minutes to share.
Cool.
All right. I think we are all back here, Lauren.
Yeah, excellent.
I should have given us more time.
So yeah, we'll use the remaining 5 minutes to kind of share out some of the insights we had from these breakout rooms. I'll say, Allison, did you have any good nuggets you'd like to share with the group?
Yeah, we could have gone for another 20 minutes, I think. And apologies to a couple folks in our group who we were just about to get some more good stuff and we had to cut off. So I think two of the themes that we heard was I liked what David at Fully had to say about listening to your people and not assuming that we know what they need. And I think we used to make a lot of assumptions about what it is that our team needs and some of the back to basics. But today, I think that has changed, and it's very much, individualized approach now. So that really resonated. And then I think the other idea here was really a shift for the better around business models. So as an example, a sales team that was completely commission-based, and obviously sales dried up. And so switching the model to be being about salary and pay structure. And actually that team model and that team approach has been more successful today than it was prior. So I think that's really innovative idea of what are some things that maybe that you can rethink in terms of your business model and how that functions. And then I think the last piece was that we talked about human-centered strategies not applying just to the people within your organization, but also the community around you. And I think Burgerville is a great example of that, of really paying attention to the people around their restaurants and folks that are in their communities and how they're really supporting those people. So that's what we came out with, and I really appreciate the chance to share and hear.
Awesome. Yeah, Anya, how was your group? What cool insights did y'all come up with?
I can echo what Allison said on 2 levels. One, we didn't have enough time for sure. So I would encourage everybody to connect on LinkedIn or find ways where you can continue the conversation. And the second thing is, listening to your employees. So really, one of the things that stood out is this idea to enable employees to engage in a way that is meaningful to them. And that might look different for everyone. And really, yes, there are benefits and there's compensation and all of these things, but what was echoed a lot and came up was that people wanted to feel like they're part of a team, that they're valued, that they're, treated as adults, that they're not questioned when they want to, take some time off or have an appointment they need to run to. So those types of things. And then also, I think really not disconnecting the work and the work environment from what's going on in the general world. So social change was one of the things that was also, important, and to really see employees as whole human beings.
Awesome. Adrienne, what about from your group?
So again, we can also say that we can echo some of those things in the group I was with. I think if we had to come up with one theme based on what we were talking about in the group, it's really that even though there's lots of really great solutions and people were able to share some ways that they've navigated work from home with different people, there was someone in the group that they created the first unionized bank in the US in 40 years. Someone else is looking to develop talent within the organization. So rather than looking externally, develop folks internally and elevate the organization that way. Lots and lots of different ways that people are really putting people at the center of the business decisions. But what we determined is that the same solution isn't always going to work everywhere. So it's great to come together and get inspiration, but what's really, really important, again, is to look to the people that you're working with. And I think someone summed it up perfectly when they said, believe in the people. When the people believe, then the people will believe in the business, and then the business will succeed.
That was beautiful. Oh man, our group had similar themes as well, so I don't want to take up too much time. I'll just add one detail. Our new season's friend Athena was talking about how they've been having their employees shadow in different roles to kind of create that connectedness and understanding of the different hardships that coworkers might be experiencing in different roles in different departments. And I think that blends into the general theme of like staying connected to your coworkers and to the needs of your employees and finding opportunities, initiatives to do that. So Sean, you want to bring it home with your group's insights?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so many good things there. I would say that one of the themes that came out for us was how powerful the stress is for the frontline workers who are facing the public. And, some of us have businesses that don't face that reality. Others have it intimately. And the thing that I heard from 2 of the folks that were talking about that was a shared bond is just a commitment to their safety and well-being from the get-go. And, the kind of, what that buys you, if you will, in terms of, I don't know, affinity and compassion and all the shared values that really make a difference later on. And then that's the other theme that we heard, which was like the idea of the long term. And Ryan, who had to leave early, he shared an example of his diversity internship program that he started, the Eli program, which I know some of you have benefited from or are aware of. He started that some years ago, and how that has really been a flywheel effect for him. And I think that when you start things or when you do things in the beginning, you just don't know what they're going to produce down the road. But the idea being start with something with the idea of people at its center. In the case for Ryan, it was diversity and really kind of shaping his company in a new way. But I think for New Seasons was a great example of like, they just started with, our goal is to make sure that nobody dies from COVID, and we're going to make sure that we protect them, and we're going to do that at the expense of reducing our capacity, which speaks a lot to them. Yeah. All right.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, everyone. We are at time. Thank you so much to the Kinesis team for being here, for sharing with us. Thank you, everyone, for engaging in such lively discussion in the breakout rooms. This was really awesome. And enjoy the rest of the conference.